The latest crime statistics paint a disturbing picture of rising murder rates in the Western Cape. According to the figures, murders climbed by almost 9% in the fourth quarter of 2023. Over 1,000 people were killed between October and December last year. 6 of the top 10 precincts that recorded the most murders are in the Western Cape, and these include Mfuleni, Gugulethu, Nyanga and Delft. Let's unpack these numbers further. We're joined this morning by the Western Cape's Community Safety MEC, Reagan. It's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming onto the program. And you and I, MEC, have had a number of discussions over the years about rising murder rates in your province. It doesn't, well, clearly from what the numbers tell us, seem to be getting any better.
Michelle, thank you for bringing us into this difficult conversation. You are quite correct. The latest quarterly crime stats is deeply distressing, considering for the first 6 months of 2023, we actually saw a 5.5% reduction coupled by a 14.1% reduction. However, the previous 2 quarters, we have seen increases, and like I've said, that is distressing. I have requested an analysis from the department, and I can confirm 3 particular elements in our analysis. We have seen that where there's an increase in gang-related activities in our province, there has been 25.7% of all murders and attempted murders occurring during load shedding here in our province. But I can also confirm, Michelle, that we have seen where there was 213 parolees that reoffended during that particular period for crimes including murder, attempted murder, as well as rape. But we are definitely, on the one hand, we have seen reductions in the area of Delft. Even though Delft is still a priority area, we have seen decreases in Kraaifontein, in Chamora Machel. And if I can zoom in quickly, Michelle, on the Delft one. When we analyzed Delft last year, we saw in the first 2 quarters there was increases. We then deployed an additional 75 lead officers further to the 92 that we already have in Delft, and we saw now a 10.1% reduction in the area of Delft. And just yesterday, the Premier and myself have had further discussions with the Provincial Commissioner in this regard, because we are ultimately wanting to ensure that any positive traction, and like we have seen last year, can actually be continued here in our province.
Yeah, you talk about increasing boots on the ground, and obviously in your experience, that kind of action by the province is making a difference in bringing these numbers down in the community that you mentioned in Delft. Insofar as that is concerned, given that the Western Cape, according to Alan Winde, is also the fastest growing insofar as the population is concerned, is that enough of a concern insofar as policing is concerned, just on a national level, and how those resources are divvied up between the provinces?
Michelle, we are consistently saying that we are not getting our equitable share. We are not getting our policing needs and priorities that we actually submit to the police at a national level. Yesterday, we confirmed again in front of the Provincial Commissioner that we actually required 28,000 SAPS members. We are now sitting at 17,500 only. I am informed that we are getting an additional 1,600 by the end of March. That should have already landed by the end of September, because the initial commitment from national government was that there was going to be 2,600 by the end of December, and we only counted 1,080. But more importantly, yesterday something important happened. The budget was tabled, and in our analysis of the national budget, we are again seeing that our country is spending more on debt service costs as opposed to policing, and it's actually triple the amount that we are paying towards servicing debt as opposed to protecting our country. And we see a marginal increase in the SAPS budget. However, there is chronic under-resourcing and a continuation of underfunding for a number of years. So even the budget should have been increased so much more to ensure that we can actually get the deployment that we require. It will also be remiss of me not to mention 2 important factors, Michelle. The one factor is that when we look at the population increases that we have seen and that the Premier alluded to, that in itself should actually force the hand of national government to actually take the province into account so that we can make sure that our policing precincts that has a ratio of one officer, and Khayelitsha, for example, to over 1,000 residents. The same with Delft and the same with Harare and Mitchell's Plain. But an important aspect would be that national government should consider strongly to take the input from the Western Cape government, and it's even reverberating now in Gauteng, that we require a new policing model and powers must ultimately be devolved to provinces.
MEC, what the Western Cape often likes to do is to claim the victories in the province as a result of the fact that it is DA run and DA led, but to claim that the failures of the province are as a result of national government. The issue around gang violence is one that we are talking in circles about year after year. The fact that guns were the weapon of choice for most murders in your province, in fact, almost 50% of murders in your province, and the fact that many of those guns are actually police weapons, stolen police weapons, that's incredibly concerning as well. Are you, MEC, losing the battle against gang violence in the Western Cape? Because the Western Cape, and Cape Town in particular, is always making the headlines for wonderful reasons around tourism, but there are particular areas, Mfuleni, Gugulethu, Nyanga, Khayelitsha and Delft, where communities there will tell a completely different story.
Michelle, thank you for bringing this particular topic into this vital discussion as well. In our analysis again, because gang-related murders and violence concerns me deeply, like it does many other residents in our province, including yourself even. So I'm definitely aware that we are needing to arrest the tide in terms of gang activities. On the one hand, I can confirm the following, that we are seeing that there was inter-gang violence between rival gangs in one particular community that has led to a number of flare-ups. There's also now been, where we call it intra-gang violence, where one particular gang leader is either behind bars or he has been killed or is now out of action. Then there's violence in that particular gang, which leads to a flare-up within that gang, even killing each other and killing innocent people to a large extent, even because our analysis showed that in April to September, 404 gang-related murders and 78, Michelle, was innocent bystanders. Just like for those Clint Smith in Beacon Valley a couple of weeks ago. But I won't say that we are losing the fight. I think on the one hand, we can definitely see that there's steady progress being made. We have communicated on the current crop, and I'm wanting to even stop shy of naming them, but there is a number of high flyers that is currently behind bars, kingpins behind bars, and that has led to sporadic shootings and inter-gang violence, like I've indicated earlier on. And we are definitely need to ensure that the second layer of those leadership within those gangs are also behind bars, because we are always advocating for the provisions of the Prevention of Organized Criminal Activities Act to actually be broadened so that gangs can actually be crippled and ultimately land up where they belong. But the kingpins that are behind bars, I think that should be commended. We will never really want to take all of the credit. We definitely talk about the cooperation. I've been very clear in working and solidly working with the South African Police Service. Those men and women here in our province, they know they are under resourced. That creates a sentiment of staff morale that could even be low as a result of being so overburdened. But we are working closely with our stakeholders, with the City of Cape Town and with our district municipalities to ensure that we can actually turn this tide. But we are seeing progress, Michelle, and I think many of the gangs and the anti-gang unit has now received an additional amount of 100 SAPS officers. I can also confirm the one colonel that was leading the charge in terms of the Fad1 Murphy case, and he was a big high-flyer known drug dealer in Mitchell's Plain. He's now a brigadier, and he is now appointed since Monday the head of the anti-gang unit. So I sincerely trust that the working relationship will continue so that these persons that personify evil ultimately land up behind bars.
And so that communities can live their lives freely, so that children can walk to the shop, go to school, come back from school, without the fear of being caught in the crossfire, MEC. What is your message to those particular communities where, it's essentially like being under lockdown in your own home?
Michelle, I wouldn't want to get too personal during this particular time, but seeing that you have asked that question in that way, it will be my sincere hope to convey the following message. In that communities, I will encourage communities to continue to work with neighborhood watches, with CPFs, with the South African Police Service, with our LEAP officers, provide information so that we can ultimately operationalize that information. Michelle, less than 2 hours ago, I was in the area of Woodlands again. I attended a funeral, and it was deeply traumatic. I then ultimately took my dad all the way to Rocklands, Mitchell's Plain. And as we drove into Rocklands, I was again reminded how the area is no longer the way it used to be when I grew up and ran in the road and played in the road in Rocklands. But I can confirm that there is a number of projects that is being led by the South African Police Service and other stakeholders on these gangs, because we are wanting to ensure that we can actually not only get them behind bars, but ensure that the entire gang activities can actually be brought to a standstill. And I see those young persons. I actually spoke to 2 of my friends that I grew up with, and they actually informed me of one particular person that we are already aware of, that we are already tracking. So the information is largely in various communities where they know what is happening, and we always encourage communities to use the resources via the CPF, via the neighborhood watches, so that we can ultimately make sure that we act on this information, but also speak directly to crime intelligence so that these officers can ultimately fulfill their role in combating, in preventing, and in investigating criminal activities. I've not lost hope, Michelle. It has been a difficult period, but I see pockets of success where we bring these perpetrators to book. We saw there was an arrest made in the case of Dose Clinsmith, and that particular person, we are delighted that bail was denied in that particular case, because we are wanting to send a strong message that the criminal justice system must actually work, and the law must actually work to protect the most vulnerable in our communities.
What are we without hope, MEC? And it's good to hear that you haven't lost hope, but I wonder what the communities of Mfuleni, Gugulethu, Nyanga, Khayelitsha and Delft would say. Western Cape Community Safety MEC Reagan Allen, let me thank you for your time this afternoon.